Good morning. I'm just gonna do something different today. I just finished my series on the fantastic performance of current world champion Domaraju Gukesh at last year's uh, Olympiad in Budapest. The Olympiad in Budapest Hastentad was a few weeks before Domaraju Gukesh became world champion. And so before I go to my next series on Master Play, I'm just going to do a really thorough review of one of my games from yesterday. The reason I'm reviewing this particular game is that I had a lesson yesterday with one of my students where I was recommending to him that he play the Cambridge Springs defence. Cambridge Springs defence is something I like to play and something I have often recommended to students. It is not a beginner opening. It is too difficult to play for beginners. It isn't played much at Master Play because there are ways for white to ensure that black can't get any more than a draw out of it. And strong master has more chances of getting something positive out of, for example, a Nympho Indian. But that's completely irrelevant. It's, because the Cambridge Springs defence teaches you important things about being a chess player. And my philosophy behind my coaching isn't to say that you should play this move or that move, use that opening or that opening, play this opening and you're going to win after 7 moves. I'm not a believer in that. I'm not a believer in remembering openings. I'm a believer in understanding openings. And the Cambridge Springs defence teaches you lots of good habits and teaches you about important things, even though it's difficult to play. When I talk about understanding openings, I played the Cambridge Springs a lot as a teenager because when I stopped getting successes with the Benoni, I started playing the Cambridge Springs a lot, and the results were fair enough, but I didn't really understand it. The beginning of my understanding, I'm only at the beginning of my understanding, of course, but the beginning of my understanding of the Cambridge Springs defence starts with Jozarov's chess channel. Josip is a policeman in Croatia, a very good chess player. We've actually played twice. Once he beat me live on his stream, fairly convincingly, in a fairly quick game. In another game, I just happened to notice that he was on Lee Chess at the same time as I was, and we played a game, and again he beat me fairly convincingly. So he's a better player than me. He's also a better YouTube content creator than me. Very, very nice person. He always ends his videos by saying chess is the best. He's a hard-working man, a full-time policeman. He's the father to young children. He's married. He's got a lot on, but he still devotes as much time as he can to chess because he loves it and he wants to give something. And I think we should appreciate those things. And I certainly have learned a lot about how to play against the Queen's pawn openings, and particularly the Cambridge Springs defence from watching Jozarov's video series on the Cambridge Springs defence. I'll put a link to that in the channel description. I must say also, to support him, I've shopped a Jozarov rucksack from the Teespring channel. I like using that as my rucksack to go to work, and also when I go to chess tournaments, that's the rucksack I take with me. So yeah, I love it. So please have a look at that. Give the man some love. If you really want to learn something about the Cambridge Springs defence, if you want to learn something more than a fool wittering on about chess can teach you, he's your man. Okay? Quick slurp of tea, let's see what happens. So my opponent, as you see, is 2200. 1754. I've been 2000 rated before. I'm not sandbagging or anything. I don't play for rating these days. I lost so much rating because I played chess sometimes at work when I worked night shifts and didn't have anything to do to keep me awake, I played chess and I lost lots of rating points by playing far too much, far too tired chess. So I don't do that anymore. I don't have the same time at work apart from anything. Anyway, he plays d4, I play knight f6. A very flexible move, but each of the three moves can be played in any order. The thing with playing knight f6 first is that it discourages your opponent from playing e4. The same is the case with d4, but I just like knight f6. I play knight f6, always have. Perfectly good boot move. He plays c4, I'll play e6. Now the order is completely irrelevant. And he plays knight f3 and I'll play pawn to d5. So we've both got two pawns in the middle. One of his pawns is more advanced than mine, but if he swaps off now, we've both got one pawn each in the middle, both got a reasonable grip on d5, and we've both developed one piece. Perfectly fine, sensible chess. So, he develops a piece and attacks my knight at the same time. So I develop a piece and attack his and defend my knight at the same time. Now, at a beginner level, my opponent is no beginner, as you can see. He's not going to fall for it, but at a beginner level, some beginners will play pawn takes pawn. Then you can play pawn takes pawn, and if they play knight takes pawn, then you can play knight takes pawn. And if they play bishop takes queen, then you can play bishop to b4 check. The king has nowhere to go, the queen has to go in the middle. You take the queen, he takes with the king, and then you take the bishop on d8 with the king, and you're a piece up. My opponent is no beginner, and he doesn't fall for that, and defends the d2 square with his knight, developing a piece at the same time. So now he is threatening to take my pawn. So I defend the pawn on d5 one more time, and he plays e3 to allow his bishop access to the game. Yeah, great. This it isn't a mistake or anything, and I'm not trying to say that if you play the Cambridge Springs defence you will win all the time. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not there, that's not me. What I'm trying to say is if you play the Cambridge Springs defence all the time, you will learn important lessons about chess. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say. And it will make you think about chess in a more chess player way of thinking about chess. That makes any sense to you. Anyway, I'll play the move which defines the Cambridge Springs defence, which is queen to a5. Now already there are some poisonous threats here. I'm threatening to play knight here and attack the knight and attack the bishop at the same time. He might play bishop here, for example, to try and stop the knight from coming here, but then I can take the pawn. That threatens the bishop, and when he takes the pawn, then I can play knight here, attack the pinned knight, and attack the bishop at the same time with the knight and with the queen. So it'll get me a piece. So it can be dangerous. But this is no beginner, he doesn't fall for that. He takes the pawn, and all three captures, I think, are book moves, and all three captures will be equally good. The more difficult one to play is c takes d. But that's a fairly standard Queen's Gambit declined position. Bit more difficult to play, but e takes d isn't at all a difficult position to play. But I prefer to play knight takes because it puts pressure on the pinned piece. So I'm now threatening to take, and when he takes back with the pawn, I'll take with the queen and say check and threaten the rook at the same time, and at the very least I get a pawn and damage his structure. But he plays queen to c2, defends the knight, but it doesn't defend his pawn structure properly. And I play bishop to b4. If we go back, how do I come up with a move B4? As I always say, a thing I do a lot of times with students is we will play a game and we'll do it cooperatively, and I'll try and not say you should play this, you should play this, you should play this. This isn't me. I'll try and guide them to find the correct move by asking themselves the correct question. And the correct question is here: are we in an opening? What is it that counts in the opening? And what counts in the opening is development. And we can develop and put pressure on the pinned piece, PP on the PP at the same time. Of course, when you look at it that way, bishop to b4, it's a very logical, simple, straightforward move. And of course it means that I'm trying to play knight takes knight, and if he takes the knight, then I could have taken the pawn and fought the rook and king. So he moves the rook to defend the c3 knight, but this leaves the a2 pawn undefended, and I take it. Move 9, I've won a pawn. The knight can't take because it's pinned to the king, so I've won a pawn. So he develops a piece so that he's now ready to castle, and in that way win a piece. So I take with the knight, and that makes it impossible for him to take back with the queen, because I would win in the queen, so I take with the pawn. And when he takes with the pawn, this pawn, the A pawn, becomes passed on move 11. And there's two things that come into play in selecting the next move. Well, for the first, three things. He's threatening the knight, the bishop, and he's threatening the queen, so I have to deal with both. But then there's two further things that, if you're ahead, all swap offers to your advantage, and the less pieces there are on the board, the more powerful the passed pawn becomes. If we get rid of all the pieces, just take them all out, set up this position, put just the pieces on the board, it's nearly won for black, because when he moves the pawn to a5, the king is almost out of range to stop it, so from becoming a new queen. So, and even if he does stop it, the black king would wander up and win the pawn on c6, and then wander across and start cleaning up the queenside pawn, the kingside pawns, and eventually win in that way. So the less pieces there are on the board, the more powerful the passed pawn becomes. So of course I swap the queen, and it's no longer threatened, and then it's irrelevant that the bishop is threatened. So he takes back the queen, he has to. The computer insists that the best move is to play d7, and I can understand that. Again, what I was saying, swaps, I'm up, swaps are advantageous. If I have material advantage, swaps are advantageous, and the less pieces there are on the board, the more powerful the passed pawn becomes. But I think, I want to support this pawn, and you can't attack it quickly now, so this might well be able to support it all the way to a3, where it's supported by the bishop, and at some later point in time I might be able to get bishop on this diagonal and support the queen in square. So I want to preserve the bishop. Apparently not the best idea. He castles, and I castle. Wrong move, especially in comparison to what I just done. I think I should actually just play a pawn here and put the king safely on f7, because he plays a e4, and I'm forced to play the pawn to f6 to stop him being able to play f5, e5. So he goes back to d3. I really thought at the time that d2 was better because it gives a better side to the queen side, but the computer evaluation insists that this is the best move. Who am I to argue with Stockfish? I'm just a fool wittering on about chess. So I push the passed pawn, so it's alright, I'll just go back a move. There's something worth saying here. So we're 15 moves into the opening. The opening's over, we're into the middle game. My opening plan has gone fairly well. I've won a pawn, and as beginners and intermediates, we're often faced with these kind of situations. Think, oh, what the hell do I do now? Well, luckily, the Cambridge Sphinx gives you a simple plan to follow. You push the passed pawn. When a passed pawn is pushed, every move it moves nearer to being a queen, the more powerful it becomes. Eventually, your opponent will most likely have to give up a piece for that pawn. So obviously, push the pawn. Simple and straightforward. He pushes the pawn to look at squashing the bishop. I think here, now with the bishop is a good idea. But I do something suboptimal here. I play pawn here to prevent it. It doesn't really prevent it well. It doesn't. But okay. He attacks the b pawn. Bit silly really, the b pawn's well defended by the knight. But I put the bishop here again to discourage, because if he pushes and I take, he can't then say, oh well, I can take his bishop, because the rooks are skewered, so he can't push the pawn. But again, not the best way to stop it. And he doubles up on the b pawn, and I bring the f rook over so that I've got both rooks on the king side. It's okay, but obviously, yeah, it makes defending this, preventing this impossible. So really, not the best way to go about it, but it's good enough. He retreats his bishop so that it's defended, so that when he moves the pawn, he doesn't lose the bishop. So, but now I realise the best idea is to play the bishop here so that the rook doesn't any longer see this pawn, so that I can think about taking the pawn here. If he pushes, I can't. Incidentally, in this situation, if he pushes the pawn and I take, he takes, and whether I take with the bishop or knight, I can't then take with the knight or bishop because it would open up the rook to the doubled rooks. So, oh wait a minute, pawn, 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 bishop, yeah, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, knight, yeah, and we end up with the same, and I've still got a pass pawn, so I just about get away with it. But he attacks the rook on b8. It's great. This is one of the things about the London system, is that this bishop is difficult to contest and becomes very powerful, at least partly because it takes control of the last square on the b file. But the rook comes forward and he pushes the pawn, and now he's got a threat of taking here and forking rook and knight. Can't let that happen. So I take with the. I don't think it makes much difference, but I take with the e pawn. He takes, and again he's making that threat, so I have to take again. It doesn't work to take the bishop here and think, well, yeah, then he takes, because when he takes the rook, if that happens, when he takes the rook here, then he gets a attack on the rook here, so it won't work. So he takes the bishop, and I take back with the rook. Now I've now got two pass pawns. They're looking really powerful, and yeah, got two rooks behind them. Can't get any better than that. So I push the pass pawn. Pass pawns should be pushed to become more powerful with each push, and pushing this pawn extends the line of sight for this pawn, and allows the rook to see the whole of the 6th rank, including the d6 square, which is covered also by the bishop, so that white isn't in a position to push his pass pawn. So this isn't really a threat on the a pawn, it's a threat to play rook takes pawn, and I can't play pawn takes rook because rook takes bishop, sorry, and I can't play pawn takes rook because he plays rook takes rook, gets his rook back, and in that way he's won a piece. So I'll move the bishop so that the bishop defends the pawn. And he defends the bishop, he attacks the bishop again. I can't defend the bishop with the pawn because the pawn is still pinned. So if I play pawn here, he just takes the bishop anyway, and I can't take back, or he takes the rook. Why it's shown that bishop moving like a knight with that arrow, it's something I've done, but what it was, I have no idea. So I retreat to e5. I'm perfectly willing to swap off. Every swap off makes the pass pawn more powerful. And that's why he doesn't want to swap off. And simple, straightforward, push the pass pawn. Now I've got 2 pass pawns, and pushing the pass pawn gives me access to the square b4, b5 even, so I can attack the pawn on d5, as well as putting the pawn a square nearer to queening. So he suggests a swap. I can't agree to that swap, because if I take, he takes with the pawn, and then he's forking rook and bishop. May actually, even at that, be winnable with those 2 extra pass pawns against the knight, but I don't want to test that hypothesis when I can just retreat the rook. So his knight comes a little bit nearer to try and stop the pawns, and I push the pass pawn. Very simple and straightforward, push the pass pawn. And he attacks the pawn, and I push the pass pawn. And he puts his bishop on c1 to try and stop the pass pawns. And I push the pass pawn. I probably should have just taken the knight first. But no, if he takes with the knight, I take with the rook, and then when he takes the rook, I push the pawn, and he can't stop me from getting a new queen. So he has to take with the rook, and I take the rook. So okay, even although I've lost the pawn, it forces swap-offs, and now we're in a position that when I play a2, threatens to get a new queen, you can't stop that queen, so it's going to cost him, as advertised for, a piece. He attacks my bishop, frankly irrelevant, because I get a new queen. And if he takes my bishop, fine, I'll take the pawn and have a queen for a bishop, no problem. So of course he sensibly takes the queen, and I take the knight, and now I've got a knight for a pawn. Great. And his king comes a move nearer to the centre, and I attack, as I talked about before, on a5, the pawn, and he pushes it forward, and I put the rook on a more centralised square and sack the pawn once more. He defends it with the king, and I come to f7. Bit of a weak move. I should have played pawn here to prevent the rook from coming here straight away. But he comes forward with his king, and then I prevent him. And he pushes a pawn. He's got to do something, and I now take advantage of that. I can play king to e6. And he pushes a pawn, and I push a pawn. And if we notice, apart from my bishop on a1, which is dark square bishop and naturally will be on a dark square, every other piece is on a light square. There's an important lesson there. If you're playing against an opponent who has just one colour of bishop in the endgame, put your pieces and pawns, if possible, on the other colour. All my pawns, my rook and my knight are invisible to this bishop. And if this bishop sees this bishop, then he's in a position where I can take that bishop off. So, yeah. So now he comes with a concrete threat. He's threatening to play rook here, check. Then first come king to here, and then he plays rook here, check, and picks up the knight. So I think there's only one, well, some ways out. But threaten the rook, threaten the bishop, and open up this square for my king. And he says check, and I move my king, and he threatens the rook again. And I say threaten his bishop, and he threatens the knight, and I defend the knight, and he retreats the bishop. I can take the pawn now. I don't know why I don't take the pawn now. But I take that pawn. Oh yeah, because I wanted to keep the pawns together. I don't know why. Oh yeah, because if he takes the pawn now, I've got the idea of playing rook here, and then coming rook here to defend the base of my pawn chain here, which I think is probably more important than winning this pawn at this particular moment in time, because I will win this pawn at some moments in time. So he takes back, and I say check with that plan. And he moves forward, and like a genius, I play the worst move I play in the whole game. Rook takes, the pawn takes, king even takes d6. Why is this such a disaster? There's no threat in the check here. It's such a disaster because I'm not just that kind of bloke who misses mate in one. I'll miss two separate mates in one. Knight to f6 check, the king here was mate, and knight to c5 check was mate. And he defends his rook and defends against one of those mates, but I spot the other one. So the lesson is that even if you are a fool wittering on about chess, not playing the best chess, missing two mates in one, and making poor choices, that you can win fairly convincingly, even against higher rated players with the Cambridge Springs defence. I'm not saying play a Cambridge Springs defence, you're going to win loads and loads of games. The most likely thing that's going to happen is that you're going to forget what it was you were supposed to do many, many times and do something wrong. That's the most likely thing to happen. But they're good, positionally sound moves. They teach you about how to play in a cramped position, swap off pieces, and they teach you what to do as a simple endgame plan. You're going to pass pawn, push it. Sorry, not endgame, middle games. Endgame, middle game / endgame plan. Push the pass pawn. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick look at the game review because there are some important things in it. Just take a slurp of my tea. It's my third time doing this uptake because so amateurish have I been in uploading today. Okay, so we'll start the review. So boot move, boot move, boot move, boot move, boot move, boot move. So 3 boot moves. We both got the same kind of strength in the centre. We've got one piece developed. Great. He develops a second piece. I develop a second piece. We remember that silly threat that he's not going to go into, but that you might have people thinking they can win this pawn. You can surprise them with giving away your queen and then playing bishop here, check. You have to get rid of the knight first. You have to remember to do it in the right order. But that's not what we're playing for. We're not playing for tricks and traps, and our opponent doesn't go for that trick and trap. So we have now come to our 5th boot move. 0.37 advantage to white. It was about 0.37 when you started, so fine. Good, healthy, sound development. Pawn comes to e3, boot move, so it's not like my opponent has done something stupid and unheard of. It's all perfectly acceptable. So I play queen to d5. I'm not going to go into queen to a5. Sorry, I'm not going to go into the correct responses for white in this situation. I'll leave that to the estimable Jozarovand. But yeah, I play queen to a5 with the threats that I've outlined, threatening particularly the pinned piece on c3. So he takes the pawn and I take back. So again, when I take back on move number 7, again it's a boot move. Okay, I'm minus 0.04 behind. So I've gone down 0.1 of a pawn since the opening. That isn't so bad. And I've played this Queen's Gambit decline line 321 times as black with a 57% win rate. 57% win rate with black against the Queen's Gambit. That's nothing to be sniffed at. My opponent makes his first slight mistake, and you see that in making this mistake, it goes from plus 0.4 to minus 0.68, almost a pawn in evaluation change, because he does in fact lose a pawn by that move. So pressure on the pinned piece whilst developing, of course, and doesn't make the evaluation any worse because it's the best move. He plays rook to c1. It's saying that it's best to play pawn here. Yeah, and then I take the knight, and he can't then take the knight back because I take the bishop. I think I can't remember what the problem is, what the idea is behind e4, but I'm not here to discuss that. So he plays a good move, excellent move, but that excellent move costs him his a pawn. Yeah, so that's the best, say the a pawn. And now I've got a passed a pawn myself, and that means that all swap-offs are to my advantage. And I'm a pawn up, and that means that all swap-offs are to my advantage. So I take with the knight, which guarantees a couple of swaps. You can't take with the queen, because then you will lose the queen. So he has to take with the pawn, and then that lets me take his queen. And okay, this wasn't the best move. The best move, as I said, but you know, that line I'm not interested in the slightest. It is better. I'm not trying to deny that. But now when he castles, he's more than a pawn down in evaluation. At castle, I should have now taken the opportunity to chase the knight, the bishop away, and made a swap off. But okay, I understand that. And now it's, you know, again it wants me to play. Yeah, okay, I understand that. And yeah, a5 is best. Definitely the right move. So, take it back. We're in a middle game. What do we do? Simple, obvious, and direct. We push the pass pawn. Definitely the best move. Oh, sorry. Pressed the wrong button. So, I play a5, and he plays a c4. Says I should have done this. I don't like that. But bishop here would have been probably better. He plays the rook, and again, bishop here definitely would have been better. But yeah, it's saying that this is the best move, and it's best to move this rook so that this rook still carries on with this idea. And that's the strongest move he has, of course. And the best idea is to stop him attacking this pawn. And he attacks the rook. And it's saying I should play rook here and concentrate on breaking up his centre, since these pawns are beginning to roll anyway. I understand that, but okay. No, I have no choice but to take. That was the best to take with the pawn. Why? I don't know. And again, I have to take, otherwise it's saying I should push the pawn, of course, and have 3 passed pawns against 1. Yeah, of course. But he swaps off and I swap off, and yeah. Okay, I've got 2 passed pawns against 1. But his passed pawn hasn't got such a bright future. My passed pawn, apart from the fact that I've played this game, the plan says it all. I've looked in the crystal ball, and this pawn here is going to become a queen on this square here in the near future. But I push the other pawn first, so that when I move the knight so that it's no longer bishop, so that it's no longer threatened, then I can push this pawn. So he attacks, but what he's actually threatening is to play rook takes pawn. The rook takes bishop and won the bishop. So I move the bishop. It's saying I should move here. That's an irrelevance actually. But yeah, I understand it is better. Yeah, terrible mistake. But who wouldn't be wanting to keep the bishop on the board there? And of course, I push the pawn. It's a good move, So I have to retreat so that he doesn't take it. And he plays. He should have taken the knight to e2, d2, where it attacks the b3 square more directly. Yeah. The best was to take the knight, and then it no longer has a role in trying to stop these pawns. I understand that. Didn't do it. Fair enough. Inaccuracy doesn't help in the least. Saying I should push this pawn, let him take this pawn, because if we swap off a pair of rooks here, then I can play here and he can't stop that pawn from becoming a new queen, except by playing knight here, and then it becomes a new queen anyway with check. And when he takes, I take the knight with check, and then yeah, he can put the rook in the way and I take it, and then he can put the bishop in the way and I take it with mate. So yeah, I should really have spotted that a3 was a better push, but it's irrelevant. I'm not trying to demonstrate that I've played all the best moves and see what a good boy I am. I'm trying to demonstrate that this opening leads to simple, straightforward middle game plans, where the easy to understand idea, every time you push a pass pawn it becomes more powerful, is what counts. And so yeah, it works for me, pushing the wrong pawn. And then I should take the knight so that when I push this pawn, this pawn can't be taken. But I have another idea. If he had taken with the knight, then I say to the knight, sacrifice, oh no, but then I push the pawn and there's no way to stop the pawn from becoming a new queen. And he would end up having to give up the bishop for that pawn as well, and then I would be playing with a bishop and knight against two rooks. A bishop, knight and rook against two rooks, an easy win. But okay, this forces off the rooks. With every piece that gets swapped off, the passed pawn becomes more powerful. And he takes, and I push the pawn, and yeah, it's powerful enough that passed pawn, that little pawn, because we're perfectly even here. I have 4 pawns, he has 4 pawns, I have a dark squared bishop, he has a dark squared bishop, he has a knight, I have a knight, I have a rook, he has a rook, we're perfectly even. But this pawn is going to cost him that knight, because it's become so powerful by moving forward. He attacks the bishop, and I get a queen. Computer saying I should attack the rook. Alright, actually, the idea that when you've got a good move in hand, which cannot be stopped, that you can play a different good move, is actually perfectly reasonable. But, I'm not doing that. I am getting a new queen whilst I've got a chance every single time. And this isn't about playing the best move all the time, it's about having a simple plan and carrying on. No, piece up. And yeah, the rook comes to a better position, and the king comes. I should have played the pawn before moving the king. Fair enough. The king comes, best move, and the pawn was good. I should have attacked the bishop instead, but I do it now when it's provoked. And he says check, and threaten the rook, and he threatens the. And I can't think, okay, well, it's a rook for a knight, because then he's going to get this pawn at some point in time. And I don't want to be playing that game. So if I was going to take the pawn, I should take the pawn now, really. But I take the pawn, and this actually gives him the opportunity to make a terrible mistake of coming forward with his king. He should retreat with his king, and then I should take the pawn, threaten the rook, or I should play rook here and then take the pawn. Yeah, rook here to defend this pawn and then take this pawn. So that is what I should do. Yeah, anyway. But he comes forward, and I'm not happy with missing one mate in one. I want to miss another mate in one, and instead win a pawn. So I win the pawn. Then he defends the rook, and I did see that I'd missed 2 mates in one, but he's only dealt with one of them. So I get my checkmate and I win the game. Yeah, I hope that has helped you to understand the opening better, particularly that opening. I hope it helps you in your development as a chess player. I'd just like to say that if you're a regular watcher of the channel, I would be interested to know if you think I should carry on doing things like this. As I say, Jozarovand has a fantastic series on this opening and on the Queen's Gambit in general. He has a fantastic series on several openings, but that's one where he really, is good at his best. So, yeah, just let me know. Apart from anything, the comments will help me. The more comments I get, the better it is for me if I understand the algorithm properly, which I probably don't. But yeah, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Especially let me know if you think I should be doing more of this kind of thing in the future. I do have plans for what I will be doing in my master game analysis, so But if you'd like to see more of this kind of thing in the future, let me know, and I will do some more deep analysis of my absolutely wonderful chess play. Yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment on my videos. Thanks. Bye.